Hello everyone, I'm Joy Chick and I run the Identity and the Network Access Division at Microsoft. My team builds services that secure access to everything for everyone. Since the last Ignite in spring, everyone has been heads down supporting hybrid work. And while you're doing that, threats and attacks continue to escalate. With all of these challenges, our journey forward requires collective resilience, and that is what I want to talk about today. To do our part, we are building tools to help you strengthen resilience across your entire organization. Because no matter how strong your cyber defenses are, you must be prepared to contain any disruption so your organization can keep operating while you recover as quickly as possible. Today, I want to share the investments we are making in Azure AD to help your organization stay protected and productive in the face of attacks, threats, crises, or even good challenges like exponential business growth. Resilient security starts with a reliable service, one that operates all the time. We have made significant platform investments to ensure that if there is a problem, our identity service fails over or self-heals so that end users don't experience any disruption. Beyond the platform, we are combating bad actors determined to disrupt our economies and our lives. Our security experts and data scientists are helping authorities hunt down cybercriminals, and we have new capabilities in Azure AD to further harden your environment. When your cloud environment is your foundation, any disruption can have devastating consequences. We understand that you are responsible for securing and governing your entire digital estate. We know you have multi-cloud architectures, and that is why we're building robust multi-cloud capabilities. There's a lot to share, so let's start with our investments in the platform. Like all cloud service providers, we have seen a dramatic rise in service usage over the past 2 years. To illustrate the scale of Azure AD, every day, we process over 90 billion authentication requests. In contrast, all of the world's major credit card companies combined process about 1 billion transactions, which is just over 1% of our volume. This makes us virtually the largest commercial cloud service in the world. To our customers, Azure AD is critical infrastructure, just like power grids and water supplies. Even a 1-minute interruption in our service can feel like an eternity. Every second matters, because if you can't sign in, you can't get anything done. Our engineering includes multiple layers of redundancy and fault isolation to keep you productive, even when the unexpected happens. To share more details about all of our investments thus far, I would like to introduce Nadeem Abdo.
Thanks, Joy. I'm Nadeem, and my team builds and runs the Azure AD service. The aspect of my role that humbles me the most is driving our resilience and security work to ensure that we can deliver on the trust you place in us. We understand how important Azure AD is to each of you, and we treat each of the over 90 billion authentications we do each day as mission critical. Our goal with resilience investments is to do everything we can to reduce the possibility of an outage, even in the face of underlying systems failing. We design our service to catch and contain outages in testing before they impact production. If an outage does occur, our goal is to ensure its impact is as limited as possible across 2 dimensions, the number of users as well as the duration of the impact. And importantly, while we invest heavily in Azure AD's core resilience itself, our strategy is to go beyond that and ensure that apps and services can continue to run unaffected even if the underlying identity systems experience an outage. We've been on a continual improvement journey to strengthen our service resilience based on 8 core principles. While many of these principles, like safe deployment and no single points of failure, are common to all cloud services, given Azure AD's mission-critical nature, we go far beyond that in several dimensions. Let's look at 2 areas where we've made significant investments. First, let's talk about fault isolation. We've migrated the entire Azure AD core authentication service to a cell-based architecture. This splits the service into separate cells. Each cell is itself fault tolerant and run in a fully active-active configuration across multiple Azure regions. Just as important, cells are designed to contain many classes of faults and prevent them from propagating to other cells. This is analogous to compartments in a submarine and are designed to limit the blast radius of many classes of outages to just that cell. I'm pleased to announce today that when we started this work, we had 5 effective cells for the entire service. And earlier this year, we reached 107 cells. This means that any given cell holds less than 1.7% of the users in the system. Now let's take a look at what we can do to keep customers productive, even if the worst happens, with our backup authentication service. You can think of this as equivalent to a generator or UPS power supply that can be deployed to supplement the electric grid for a mission-critical application. This is a unique service that Azure AD offers to all of our users. It's even more so given that the scale we run at is operating the world's largest commercial identity system. The backup service is a separate authentication service that runs within the Microsoft cloud, but on systems and network paths that are separate from the primary Azure AD service. It is entirely automatic in its failover from the primary to the backup, and in addition, the end user experience is the same between the primary and the backup service. We regularly exercise this system in an active-active manner. And while it's important to remain productive, we must ensure you can do so securely. The backup service is aware of and respects your security and compliance policies, as well as security event logging. It also ensures that changes to the directory, such as a role change or a user losing access, are respected and reflected immediately. The system is tuned to offer resilient defaults automatically, but also allows more granular policies to let you dictate the trade-offs that are right for your specific environment. The fault isolation work and the backup authentication service are just 2 examples of the significant investment we're making to raise the bar on Azure AD resilience. We will continue to invest in these areas and are committed to share more, including guidance on how you can best leverage Azure AD resilient practices, as well as leveraging SDKs that ensure your applications are maximally resilient. We value your confidence in your partnership and will continue to prioritize security and resilience every day. Thank you for taking this journey with us, and back to you, Joy.
Thanks, Nadeem. Platform resilience is not your job, it is ours. These investments will help ensure that you can always sign into all of your apps to access all of the resources you need, backed by our 4 nines service level agreement. But our investment do not stop at the platform. Attacks against identities are getting more intense, more frequent, and more sophisticated. And in fact, identity has become the new cybersecurity battleground. Cyber criminals and nation states are targeting identities to infiltrate businesses, steal intellectual property, and conduct espionage. When Nobelium unleashed the most sophisticated nation-state cyber attack in history, we worked side by side with industry partners and the security community to help everyone respond, harden their environments, and recover. Through this work, we analyzed new attack techniques, tactics, and procedures. We used what we learned to enhance prevention and detection in Azure AD. When it comes to prevention, we have learned that adopting a zero-trust architecture is no longer an option. It is a business imperative. At the heart of Microsoft Zero Trust solution is Azure AD Conditional Access, the access policy engine that explicitly verifies every access request. We have now strengthened conditional access in 3 areas. First, we have made policy targeting more granular. Now, you can apply access policies not just to user groups, but also to groups of apps or devices. Next, we're expanding the reach of conditional access. You can now apply policies to workload identities. And continuous access evaluation extends conditional access into each access session. Instead of applying policy just at the end point of entry, it enforces policies in near real time whenever a new threat is detected. And finally, we're giving you new tools for implementing policies to make sure they cover every critical aspect of your environment. And these tools, including a dashboard that can identify gaps in your coverage and a library of pre-configured conditional access policy templates. But prevention alone is not enough. You need the ability to detect attacks when they do happen. So in Azure AD Identity Protection, we have evolved our detections across cloud and on-premises to catch new and emerging attack patterns. In fact, we're rolling out a new detection for one of the most insidious type of attacks, token theft. And to give you more visibility into risk trends in your organization, we have built a new risk analysis workbook. Or if you prefer to view everything in your favorite theme, you can export risk data with one click. There's so many exciting things to show here, so I would like to invite Sarah Handler to take a deep dive.
Thank you, Joy. I'm Sarah Handler, and I am one of the people behind the scenes building these security features. I'm focused on making sure that none of you are the next big breach headline. So we've been working hard on new features to enable your environment to be more secure tomorrow than it is today. Let's start with improvements to conditional access. First, we have created a new built-in conditional access dashboard that analyzes all your deployed policies and identifies potential gaps. You can see an overview of your policy coverage and best practice policy recommendations based on analysis of current sign-in patterns. On the Monitor tab, we see a lot of recent risky sign-ins that use legacy authentication without the protection of conditional access policies. And because these sign-ins use legacy authentication, they don't support MFA. Once you understand gaps in your coverage, you then need to roll out new policies at scale. So we've added pre-built, easy-to-deploy policy templates that align with our security recommendations. To close this gap, I'm going to block all apps using legacy authentication. With this template and just a few clicks, that legacy authentication concern is resolved. As Joy mentioned, we're expanding conditional access to be more comprehensive. We're seeing more and more attacks using non-human, or what we call workload identities. We're working on new features to cover this attack surface, starting with conditional access policies for workload identities. We've also added application and device filters that can automatically select objects with security attributes that you define. Your policies can now dynamically respond to new apps and devices, so you don't have to update policies by hand. If you have service principals with permissions to access sensitive resources, you want to protect them from abuse. You can now create a policy that targets service principals. And using the new application filter and custom security attributes, your policy will dynamically scale. For example, you could apply it to all workload identities where the data center attribute equals east, and then block access from outside trusted networks. Now look how smooth this is. This policy automatically targets this app with the data center set to east. And when the app tries to authenticate outside of the trusted network, it's blocked. You also need granularity when targeting devices. That's where device filters comes in. Before, you had limited device targeting options. But now, you can target devices using extensible attributes. One common scenario is only allowing access to sensitive resources from secure access workstations. With device filters, you can grant access to apps for a device that's marked as compliant or hybrid Azure AD joined and tagged as a secure access workstation. Any devices not meeting these criteria will be blocked. No policy changes when new devices are added, no size limits, much easier to manage. As Joy mentioned, prevention alone is not enough. Azure AD Identity Protection helps you detect, remediate, and investigate identity compromise when it does happen. Token-based attacks are a worrying new trend. Token theft and replay are harder to detect than traditional password compromise, and we've seen them give attackers more persistent and elevated access to the victim's resources. We've recently released 2 new detections for token replay: anomalous token and unfamiliar sign-in properties for session cookies. These detections identify tokens with anomalies in their lifetimes, where they're being played from, and the order in which they're played. It also looks for session cookies with unfamiliar patterns, a common sign of token replay. So what does token replay and our detection look like in action? Here, we have a stolen token. Let's replay that cookie to access Office 365. Risk was detected on this sign-in due to the suspicious properties, moving the user's overall risk too high. Here, both continuous access evaluation and a user risk policy are enabled. So the user risk elevation prompts active sessions for re-authentication near real time, blocking the attacker from further access. Along with these new detections, we're making it easier than ever to investigate risk with 2 major improvements. First, we've added new ways to export your risk data. Many of you asked for easier export to third-party tools. Now, with just 1 click, you can send your risk data to your SIEM of choice. If you need to retain this data beyond our built-in retention periods, it takes just 1 more click to send months of data to a storage account. Next, we've added a new risk analysis workbook built upon log analytics to give you new insights. Now you can easily understand where in the world you're seeing risk, what types of risk are most prevalent, and even how effective you are at responding to risk detections. We know you want more efficient investigation, so on top of our new signals and this new workbook, we've reduced alert volumes in identity protection by more than 60%, all while improving detection quality. With less noise, you can focus more on the risks that matter. Our prevention and detection work doesn't stop here. There is so much more coming that I can't wait to share with you soon. We're honored by your continued partnership on this security journey. Joy, back to you.
Thanks, Sarah. I know this is a lot, so let me just pause and show you a list of all the new capabilities that Sarah just showed you and when they will be available. We know that attacks are getting more sophisticated, but so are the environments that all of you have to protect. In fact, hybrid and multi-cloud architectures have become the norm, and the number of identities that access cloud infrastructure has increased exponentially, especially non-human identities. All of these identities need permissions to authenticate to other machines and digital services, to perform automated configuration tasks, and to access customer data. With each cloud workload you deploy, permissions multiply, which increases your attack surface. Thousands, if not millions, of complex digital entities now have virtually unlimited access privileges. Some have even more permissions than administrators. So, how do you minimize risk? You do so with security and access policies that follow the zero trust principle of least privilege, and with policies that stay consistent across your different clouds and your on-premises infrastructure. This is why, earlier this year, Microsoft acquired CloudKnock Security. Their unique technology helps organizations manage permissions for all types of identities across all clouds. I would like to invite Balaji Parimi, who founded CloudKnock Security and is now a member of the Microsoft family, along with our own Joe Dazzi, to tell us more.
Thank you, Joy. I was grappling with these issues in my prior life, where I was managing a hybrid cloud with vastly different operating models. To understand the risk and come up with a mitigation plan, I need answers to these three questions. Which identities are operating in my environment? What permissions do they have? What permissions do they use for day-to-day operations? To my surprise, I couldn't find a decent tool to answer these questions, so I founded CloudKnock. Let's start with the basic question. What is a permission? It is simply an identity having the ability to perform an action on a resource. This type of abstraction is crucial to manage permissions of any identity across any cloud with one unified operating model. Our activity-based authorization technology creates usage profiles across these three dimensions by continuously monitoring all the activity and attributes from both the identity provider and the cloud provider. This provides complete visibility into all identities irrespective of type or origin, what permissions they have with details on action and resources, what permissions they use for day-to-day operations. This gives a clear picture of the gap in permissions provision versus used. Minimizing this gap eliminates unnecessary risk. Let's see it in action with an AWS account. Here is my development account with 499 different types of identities, including roles, EC2 instances, local user accounts, and users coming from a single sign-on provider. I can see the permissions of all of these identities. We can see the actions that each identity is entitled to do and the actions it has performed, along with how many resources it can get to and how many resources it has touched. Here are the details of a machine identity, an EC2 instance. The view is exactly the same for human identity as well. Now that we see a huge gap between permissions provision versus used, we need to right-size them. For AWS, we create an IAM policy containing just the used permissions and attach that policy to the identity. We can do this in just a few clicks. Select the identities. The actions this identity performed are already pre-selected. Give this policy a name. This is showing the list of actions with different services. You can limit the actions of a specific service to a specific set of resources as well. Here is the generated IAM policy with just enough permissions. Now that we have right-sized the permissions, we can keep an eye on them to make sure that they don't creep back. We created a metric to measure the gap between permissions granted and permissions used, called privilege creep index. The bigger the gap, the higher the index. This is computed for every identity and updated hourly or on demand. We also aggregate this at the AWS account level so that you can see which accounts need attention. The heat map gives a great overview of permission risk across different accounts and cloud providers as well. Now when I switch to GCP, I get the same granular visibility with the same metrics for all my projects. I can track permission usage for all G Suite users and service accounts, whether they are user created or system created. This demonstrates our ability to manage permissions of any identity across any cloud with one unified operating model. By joining Microsoft, we are unlocking new synergies and making it even easier for you to protect your hybrid and multi-clouds and strengthen your security posture. Over to Joe to share more details.
Thank you, Balaji, for this great walkthrough. There's no question that being able to discover and track permissions across multiple clouds is the best way to stay safe and resilient. However, you cannot do this in isolation. You need to look at access control and governance holistically across your enterprise. Consider the life cycle of identities. Who is creating them? Are they still fit for purpose? And who is reviewing them for compliance? While traditional identity governance and privileged access management solutions are great for on-premises, when extended to cloud workloads, they start to struggle because they are simply not designed for the cloud. Today, very few tools can address complex security and compliance needs, across all clouds and on-premises. It's time to reimagine the way we manage, govern, and protect identity and access. And CloudKnox is a critical piece of this vision. We are removing silos to deliver one integrated cloud access control solution. This integrated solution combines identity provisioning, lifecycle management, workflow automation, permissions management, and analytics for all identities, all resources, all clouds, and on-premises, so that you can enforce zero-trust access controls everywhere. Alongside the integration of CloudKnox with Microsoft's security portfolio, I'm excited to announce two new capabilities that support this vision. First, you can now provision users directly from Azure AD into on-premises applications. This means you can manage access lifecycles consistently for all apps, even those that live in separate governance systems. Second, we have extended Azure AD's entitlement management approval with custom workflows. You can now integrate your business workflows and internal access policies without needing to write code. Our investments in identity governance capabilities and the integration of CloudKnox are important steps in our plan to deliver this integrated solution that I mentioned earlier. I hope you're as excited as we are about this convergence and all the possibilities. Now, back to Joy.
Thank you, Joe and Balaji. To learn more about CloudKnox, visit aka.ms/CloudKnox. Today, we covered innovations across multiple layers of modern identity, from the underlying platform to robust security and access controls, and all the way into multi-cloud. And we will keep going. In fact, you can expect a lot more from us as more interactions turn digital and more boundaries disappear in our new hybrid reality. The digital ecosystem is expanding to create more and more connections between people, organizations, apps, services, and smart devices. Identity's role in evolving digital ecosystem will only grow, because identity is the only system that can instill trust in our digital interactions. This is true whether we execute a short-term transaction or embark on a long-term collaboration. Based on your feedback, we're designing our identity platform as a trust fabric to serve the digital ecosystem long into the future. We appreciate all of your input to help us deliver fundamental security as well as magical experiences like Teams Connect and verifiable credentials. Please keep it coming so that together we can define the future of identity. We'll have more to share soon, but until then, enjoy Ignite, stay secure, and stay resilient. Thank you.
We've experienced some major changes in the last year, especially in the workforce. We moved to hybrid environments. We've moved to remote environments. We've learned to enjoy content on a variety of different platforms, and that includes Microsoft Ignite.
Hi, I'm Jessica Feku, Security Product Marketing Manager here at Microsoft.
You just watched Microsoft Vice President of Identity and Network Access Management, Joy Chick, talk about how Azure Active Directory can help you stay resilient in an era of ever-escalating attacks. Learn more about how you can accelerate your digital transformation. Join Compliance and Privacy General Manager Aleem Rayani for Breakout Session 241 as he discusses the security solutions that we're building to help you manage and reduce risk across your entire digital estate. Hear from Partner Director of Engineering Ramya Chitrakar and Microsoft's Vice President of Enterprise Management, Steve Dispenza, in Breakout Session 243 as they demonstrate how Microsoft Endpoint Manager can help you build business resiliency, strengthen your security posture, and adapt in a cloud-connected hybrid world of work. And stick around with General Manager Aleem Rayani in Breakout Session 251 as he helps you understand how to maintain and manage your compliance posture by sharing his 5 steps for building a secure workplace. If you have any questions about the products, the news, or announcements that you've heard today, check out the Connection Zone, where you can connect with any of our subject matter experts in an Ask the Expert session. If you missed any of today's sessions, they're available on demand. Check out aka.ms/msignite21_security/on-demand. We want to hear from you. Share your feedback with us by participating in a product roundtable. Be sure to stay up to date with all of the latest news and announcements surrounding Microsoft security by visiting www.microsoft.com/security, or follow us on social at MSFT Security on Twitter or Microsoft Security on LinkedIn. If you've enjoyed these sessions, be sure to join us tomorrow for an action-packed agenda on day 2 of Microsoft Ignite. We kick off the morning with the industry's leading cybersecurity experts in Into Focus Security, and then we take a deeper dive into the future of security with thought leadership breakout sessions. You won't want to miss this. Stay tuned for what's ahead and enjoy the rest of Microsoft Ignite.